My name is Tyler Ramsey. I'm 29, and I teach chemistry to bored teenagers who think atoms matter more than heartbreak. The day my life blew up, my wife Jenna didn't cry. She grinned. She tossed my wedding ring on the chipped kitchen counter, suitcase in hand. You're broke now, Tyler. Should have thought of that before choosing loyalty over ambition. Our fridge was empty, our savings gone, my credit cards chewed in half. Outside, Mason, my brother-in-law, rolled up in a new Tesla, blaring music. Told you she'd leave, you loser. Even my dad wouldn't answer my calls. Briggs men don't beg, he'd always said. I slept on a bare mattress, listening to Jenna's laughter from her new condo through paper-thin apartment walls. Just when I thought I'd hit bottom, a formal letter arrived marked Urgent, Account Frozen. At the bank, a marble-floored office, a sharp-suited manager, and a security guard at the door. Mr. Ellis, eyes unreadable, slid a leather folder across the desk. This isn't about what you lost, Mr. Ramsey. It's about what your mother left behind. But what was left behind could topple an entire family tree and rewrite my story forever. The front door slammed so hard it shook the window. I just stood there, watching Jenna, my wife, my whole life, or so I thought, drag her suitcase across the porch without a word. My wedding ring spun on the chipped counter, catching one last glint of sunlight before rolling to a stop. She didn't even look back. The silence in the apartment after the door slammed felt like a vacuum. Every breath too loud, too empty. I stared at the blank wall, half expecting this to be a nightmare I'd wake up from. The fridge was empty except for half a jar of pickles and expired milk. The pantry was stripped. I opened the bank app, hoping for a miracle. My hands shook as the screen loaded. Balance, $8.14. She'd taken it all. I sat down at the table, the ring between my fingers, wondering how everything could fall apart so fast. My phone buzzed. I didn't want to look, but I did. A message from Mason, Jenna's brother. He never missed a chance to kick me when I was down. A photo of his new Tesla, beaming in the driveway. The caption, "Looks like I picked the right sister." That smug grin burned into my mind. I threw my phone across the room, listening to it thud against the old sofa. Outside, I heard whispers, Mrs. Finch from next door, talking to someone in the hall. Guess she finally left him. Can't say I'm surprised. I closed the blinds, fighting the humiliation crawling up my skin. In the kitchen, the fridge hummed, stubborn and empty. I called Dad. He let it ring forever, then answered with a sigh. "Tyler, I warned you. Some lessons you gotta pay for. Briggs men don't beg, you hear?" The line went dead before I could answer. I drifted from room to room, feeling like a ghost in my own life. In the closet, her old winter coat still hung there, forgotten and heavy. I reached inside, more out of habit than hope, and felt something stiff in the pocket. I pulled it out, a crumpled pawnshop ticket. The handwriting was shaky but clear. Ramsey, keepsake. No details, just a number and a date from last week. My chest tightened. The Ramsey keepsake was Mom's locket, the one she'd left me in her will. Jenna always hated it. I said it was old junk. I pressed the ticket to my lips, not sure if I wanted to scream or break down right there on the floor. Had she really sold it? Was nothing sacred anymore? The sun was barely up, the world sharp and cold outside. I grabbed my jacket, still clutching the pawn ticket like it might burn through my skin. I locked the apartment and headed out, every step heavier than the last. I started the car, engine coughing awake, and pulled out into the dawn. One question burned in my head as I drove toward the pawn shop. Had she really taken the last thing that mattered? I didn't want to know, but I had to see for myself. The smell of grilled burgers and fresh-cut grass carried over from the Sanders' backyard, where half the neighborhood was already crowded around Mason and his brand-new house. The sun caught the glass windows, making his place shine like a prize on a game show. Mason stood by the grill, laughing loud enough for the whole block, one arm draped over his wife's shoulder, the other dangling keys to his new Tesla like a trophy. "Just closed on the pool, too," he boomed. "Nothing but the best for my family." Everyone cheered. Mr. Sanders clapped him on the back, and Mason's father-in-law handed him another beer. I lingered on the edge of the yard, half invisible, paper plate in hand, listening as they toasted Mason's unstoppable drive. Not a single eye flicked toward me. My old friends, Chris, Jamie, stood nearby. but when I tried to say hello, they gave weak smiles and turned away, muttering something about refilling drinks. I felt like an empty shadow, drifting from one corner to another. Mason caught my eye across the lawn, flashing that knowing, victorious grin. "Hey, Tyler, how's that job hunt going?" he called, loud enough for everyone to hear. The laughter that followed had a mean edge, and my cheeks burned. I gripped the pawn ticket in my pocket so hard it crumpled. That stupid slip of paper was all I had left of my pride. The memory of Jenna tossing my wedding ring, the cold slam of the apartment door, it was all still too raw. I slipped away from the party, barely noticed, and walked down the block to the tiny pawn shop wedged between a laundromat and a boarded-up cafe. Inside, the place smelled of old leather and cheap cologne. The pawnbroker, a wiry guy with thick glasses, eyed me up and down. "You got a ticket?" he said. I handed it over, hands sweating. He rummaged in the back, then reappeared with a receipt. "That item's gone," he said. "Gold locket, right? Antique. Property of R. Ramsey, returned to sender on the back." My heart stuttered. "Yeah, that's the one. My mom's." He shrugged. "Sorry, man. A woman picked it up yesterday. Name was Evelyn, I think. Had ID and everything. Evelyn. The name hit me like a wave. Jay Jenna's best friend, the one who'd always eyed the locket with greedy curiosity. For a second, the pawnshop's yellow light spun around me, and I had to steady myself against the counter. I wanted to ask more, but the pawnbroker was already looking past me to the next customer. As I left, the summer air felt heavier, like the whole world was leaning away from me. Walking back through the neighborhood, Mason's voice echoed from the backyard, everyone cheering his latest win. My hands clenched in my pockets, fingers wrapped around the memory of Mom's locket, now somewhere out of reach. Somehow, the locket was still moving, still telling its own story. But why would Evelyn want it? And what did return to sender really mean? I wasn't sure, but I knew I had to find out. That night, sleep barely came. When it did, it wasn't peaceful. In my dream, Grandma Ruth was alive again, bustling around her kitchen in that faded blue apron, humming Patsy Cline and scribbling notes on the backs of grocery receipts. She used to say, "Tyler, the world's a puzzle. Most folks just don't know what they're looking for." Grandma never threw anything away, but she hid the important stuff in plain sight. I'd wake up to find cryptic notes stuck to the milk carton. Red spoon, Friday surprise. Or blue tulip, back garden, dig deep. I woke up shivering, the memory of her voice echoing in my head. Maybe it was the stress, or maybe the universe really was nudging me, but I couldn't stop thinking about that phrase. Blue tulip. Suddenly, I remembered that summer day, years ago, when Mom and I found Grandma planting new bulbs behind the old tool shed. She'd winked at me and whispered, "Someday, when things get tough, check the flower beds." By noon, I found myself at Grandma Ruth's old house, now just a rental with peeling paint. I let myself through the side gate, heart pounding, half expecting the new tenants to yell at me. The flower bed was still there, wild and messy, but a few blue tulips were pushing through the weeds. My hands shook as I dug beneath the soft dirt, uncovering an old, faded gardening glove buried near the roots. I pulled it out, and inside my fingers brushed against a lump. Stuffed deep in the glove was a dried, pressed blue tulip. Wrapped around the stem was a strip of paper, curling with age. I unrolled it, hands sweating, and found a riddle in Grandma's careful handwriting. Where acids fizz and lessons learned, find the shelf where tulips burned. Red and blue, a chemical clue, what's old is hidden, waiting for you. My mind spun, trying to make sense of it. Grandma's love for riddles was legendary. She'd once sent me on a week-long hunt just to find my birthday gift. But acids, fizz, and chemical clue, it suddenly clicked. Grandma was hinting at her days as the local school's chemistry teacher. She'd spent hours in that cramped lab, teaching kids about fire and ice, acids and bases. She always joked that the school's science lab was her second home. With a nervous laugh, I stuffed the glove and tulip into my backpack and headed out. The sun was setting behind Ruth's old apple tree as I locked the gate behind me. If the next clue was hidden in the school's chemistry lab, I was going to have to find a way in. Whatever Grandma wanted me to discover, I had a feeling it was bigger than any riddle she'd ever left me before. And for the first time since Jenna walked out, I felt a tiny flicker of hope, like maybe, just maybe, this puzzle wasn't meant to break me, but to lead me somewhere worth going. The school looked different at night, emptier, colder, the hallways full of echoes instead of laughter. My sneakers squeaked across the linoleum as I ducked past the janitor's closet, heart pounding. I hadn't been back here since graduation, and I definitely hadn't planned on breaking in tonight, but Grandma Ruth's riddle left me no choice. Inside the gardening glove, along with the pressed tulip, I'd found a tiny scrap of paper. It was taped carefully to the lining and read, Locker 218, Combo 371942. That was my old locker. I almost laughed. Some part of me thought the code would be for a hidden safe or buried treasure, not a beat-up piece of school property I hadn't touched in years. Navigating the dark halls, I kept my hood up, listening for footsteps. The lockers were unchanged, dented, streaked with marker, the paint chipped from 1,000 slams. Locker 218 sat at the end of B Hall, right beneath a flickering light. I spun the dial, hands shaking, and popped it open. Tucked inside, taped to the back wall, was a sealed white envelope. My name was written on the front in Mom's looping script, Tyler, not son or sweetie, just my name. It made my throat tight. I pulled it free, glancing nervously down the hall. Inside, I found 3 things. A faded Polaroid of Mom in her 20s, smiling in front of a lemonade stand. A recipe card for blue ribbon lemonade, written in a mix of Mom's and Grandma Ruth's handwriting. And a business card, Mr. Ellis, Senior Account Manager, 3rd Street Bank. The recipe was strange. Ingredients were crossed out, measurements scribbled, but the last line jumped out. Don't trust the sugar, only the lemon brings truth. I ran my thumb over the words, puzzled. Was it a code? A warning? I remembered Mom's habit of hiding messages in recipes. Sometimes the ingredient that looks sweet is the one that'll poison you, she'd say, wagging her finger while I mixed flour. Lemon always tells the truth, sour, yes, but honest. The business card felt warm in my palm. Mr. Ellis. I'd heard Dad mention his name, something about managing the family accounts when I was a kid. Why would Mom want me to see him now, years after she'd passed? As I slipped everything into my jacket, the hall clock chimed midnight. I stepped into the shadows, ready to face whatever test came next. The clue was clear. The answers I needed weren't hidden in sugar-coated words, but in the sharp, honest truth Mom left behind. And whatever lay waiting at that bank, I knew it would change everything I thought I knew about my family. My hand tightened on the photo as I hurried out the back door, one step closer to the real story, one only the lemons could reveal. The supermarket aisles were packed, every checkout line crawling along, every cart stacked with weekend deals and fresh fruit. I just wanted to get in, grab bread and peanut butter, and get out. Instead, I spotted Jenna by the deli, Mason right beside her, waving his car keys and laughing with some friends. I almost doubled back, but my cart was already too full and my EBT card was burning a hole in my pocket. I tried to keep my head down, but as I waited in line, Jenna's voice carried over the registers. Wow, Tyler, is that generic cereal? Mason, look, he's shopping like a real grown-up now. Her laughter echoed down the aisle. Mason, never one to let a chance go by, called out, Careful, man, don't spend all those food stamps in one place. Want me to buy you a steak? A few people snickered, and a girl 2 carts behind raised her phone, recording. I heard the camera shutter and felt the blood rush to my ears. By the time I left the register, wiping my card with shaking hands, the whispers had turned into full-on laughter. Out in the parking lot, Jenna filmed herself for her story, pouting for the camera. Life upgrades, y'all. Some people just can't keep up. My face burned with humiliation. I texted Dad, hoping for a shred of comfort. No answer. Then I heard a soft voice behind me. Tyler? I turned. Aunt Evelyn stood there, older now, but the same sharp eyes. She pressed something into my hand, a seed packet. Don't open it here, she whispered, her gaze lingering, serious. You know your mother never trusted the obvious. At home, I sat on my bed and turned the packet over. Sunflowers, Heirloom, 1993, was printed across the front. Below, in Mom's looping handwriting, Plant only in good soil. Key to new beginnings. Inside wasn't a seed, but a tiny metal key. Brass, old-fashioned, cool in my palm. No note, no explanation. I turned it over, searching for a number, an engraving. Nothing. My mind spun with questions. Why did Aunt Evelyn have this? Why would Mom hide a key in a seed packet? And what did new beginnings mean? I sat on my mattress, staring at the key, humiliation shifting into raw, gnawing curiosity. The day started with laughter at my expense, but ended with a mystery in my hands. A mystery only my mother and maybe Aunt Evelyn could explain. As I clutched the key, I realized it didn't matter how many cameras caught me at my lowest. If Mom trusted me with a secret, I owed it to her and to myself to find out where it led. Mr. Ellis's office at the bank was all glass and quiet, the kind of space that made you sit up straight and double-check your shoes for mud. He shook my hand with a seriousness that made me nervous. "Tyler, your mother was very specific," he said. "This isn't about cashing a check. It's about following her wishes, every detail." He led me through 2 security doors and down a hallway lined with thick vault doors. As he unlocked one, he explained, "Your mother set up a legacy trust, $55 million, to be exact. But there's a condition. You have to solve something first. She said only you'd understand." Inside the vault, he handed me a jewelry box, old and polished, the kind I remembered on Mom's dresser when I was a kid. It was heavier than it looked. On top, 3 tiny drawers, each painted a different number, 3, 7, and 11. "Your mom left these for you," Mr. Ellis said, and her instructions were simple. Open each drawer and use what you find to unlock the next step. My hands shook as I slid open drawer 3. Inside, a matchstick, whole and unused, nestled in velvet. Drawer 7, a miniature lemon, perfectly preserved. Drawer 11, a tiny silver ring, just big enough to fit on the tip of my finger. I stared at the objects. A matchstick, a lemon, a ring. None made sense together, but all felt intentional. Mom always loved puzzles and riddles. It was her way of making even chores into games, leaving coded notes in our lunchboxes or birthday cards. I turned the box over, searching for a clue. Nothing. Mr. Ellis just nodded. "You're the only one who can solve it, Tyler. Your mom was clear." I slipped the matchstick into my pocket, rolled the lemon between my fingers, slid the ring onto my pinky. Somewhere there was a message here, something only I would catch. "Remember," Mr. Ellis said quietly, "sometimes the hardest truths are hidden in the simplest places." I left the bank with the jewelry box under my arm, my mind racing. I had pieces to a puzzle, but no picture on the box. Only my mother's trust, a ticking clock, and a fortune that might as well have been on the moon if I couldn't unlock the meaning. And inside each drawer, I felt it. A challenge, a warning, and maybe, just maybe, a chance to change everything. Aunt Evelyn was the last person I wanted to call, partly because she'd always sided with my mom on family drama, partly because she was the only one who ever saw through my "I'm fine" act. But that afternoon, with the jewelry box and its odd little treasures mocking me on the kitchen table, I dialed her anyway. She arrived in her gardening jeans, hair tied back, eyes bright with the thrill of a mystery. "All right, Tyler," she said, setting her purse down. "Let's see what your mother cooked up this time." I laid out the contents, the matchstick, the miniature lemon, the silver ring, and Mom's old blue ribbon lemon pie recipe, which I'd found tucked between the box and a stack of my high school report cards. Evelyn raised an eyebrow at the missing steps in the recipe. "See here," she pointed. "Step 3. Light as a feather, but no instructions. Step 7. Add the sun. That's odd. Step 11. Circle back to where you began." A memory flickered, Mom's old joke about her oven. The only thing hotter than my temper is that oven at 375. The matchstick, oven temp. The lemon, well, that was obvious. But the ring? Mom always set the timer with her wedding ring, I said, remembering how she'd spin it on the kitchen counter. She'd bake for exactly 11 minutes, claim it was her lucky number. We combined the clues, 375 degrees, lemon filling, bake for 11 minutes. Evelyn grinned. "Now let's check the box." There was a hidden latch under the ring's drawer. With a twist and a tug, the bottom slid open, revealing a folded document, yellowed and delicate. My heart hammered. It was a legal contract, my mother's real will. The ink was fresh, the date after the official version everyone in the family had seen. Evelyn read aloud, her voice trembling. This will is only valid if verified by a school principal. A jolt shot through me, my old high school just down the street. The principal, Mrs. Hargrove, had been Mom's close friend. I stared at the will, the signature, the precise stipulation, clear as day. Everything Mom wanted for me, everything she protected, was right here. Evelyn squeezed my hand. She left this for you, Tyler, not for anyone else. The pieces fit together, the clues, the puzzle, the reason Mom always said, the truth rises like good pie crust. And just like that, my path was set, the next step glowing in front of me. All I had to do was convince Mrs. Hargrove to help and hope I wasn't too late. I hadn't set foot in Roosevelt High in years, not since I barely scraped through senior year. My palms sweated as I parked outside the tiny brick house where Mrs. H. Hargrove, formerly Principal Hargrove, now lived. I rang the bell, heart pounding, the puzzle box and legal will burning a hole in my messenger bag. She opened the door, older but still sharp-eyed. Tyler Ramsey. I'd know those worried brows anywhere. Come in. Her living room looked just like her old office, tidy, stern, with a whiff of lavender. We sat, and I stumbled through the story. The clues, the will, my mom's baking riddles. She nodded, listening intently, then disappeared into her bedroom. When she returned, she was holding a sealed envelope. Your mother gave me this the afternoon she passed, she said softly. She said you'd need it when you were ready for the truth. My hand shook as I tore open the flap. Inside, a bank routing slip, typed and crisp, and a faded photo of me as a kid, maybe 6 years old, wearing Mom's locket. On the back, in Mom's looping hand, my true heir. The routing slip wasn't just a record. It showed a $55 million transfer, pending for years, in a trust fund set up under my name. But there was a condition, printed in bold on the bottom. Release upon in-person signature and presentation of original locket. I felt the world tilt. All this time, the locket pawned by Jenna, the clues Mom left scattered, she had set up every step. Trusted only me to solve it. Mason and Jenna could steal my dignity, but they'd never have the locket or the truth. Mrs. Hargrove squeezed my shoulder. Your mother was adamant, Tyler. She said you'd need to find the path on your own. She believed in you, even when you doubted yourself. I blinked back tears, the photo blurring in my hands. The humiliation, the poverty, the cold stares from everyone who'd written me off, none of it mattered. The past had shaped me, but it wouldn't define what came next. But as I left, envelope and locket in my pocket, I couldn't shake the feeling that the final challenge, claiming what was rightfully mine, would be the hardest step yet. The bank's marble lobby hummed with quiet tension as I clutched the envelope and the blue locket, waiting for my number to be called. Suddenly, Mason strode in, all fake charm and crocodile tears. Tyler, wait. Let's not fight anymore. Family is more important than old grudges, right? He spread his arms as if expecting a hug. Behind him, Jenna entered, eyes watery, voice trembling. I was wrong, Ty. Can't we just start over? Their act was so obvious it almost made me laugh if I wasn't so tired. Aunt Evelyn appeared at my side, jaw set. They heard about the transfer, she whispered. Don't trust a word they say. At that moment, a bank security guard approached, holding a tablet. Mr. Ramsey? The manager asked me to show you this. He played a clip. My mom, months before she died, sitting in this same lobby. My son Tyler will come one day, she told the manager. He'll have the blue locket. No one else is to access this account, no matter who they are. The guard nodded to me. We take instructions like this seriously. Mason's face fell. Jenna's desperation flared. She lunged for my hand, trying to grab the locket. In the scuffle, Aunt Evelyn stepped in, fierce as a mother bear. Enough, Jenna. Jenna recoiled, and Evelyn turned to me, voice trembling but strong. Tyler, there's something you don't know. Your mother wasn't the only one who protected you. I've kept a secret for decades, for this very day. I froze, the locket hot in my palm while Mason and Jenna glared. What was Aunt Evelyn about to reveal? And would it change everything I thought I knew about my family? The next morning, I woke up to my phone buzzing non-stop. A video was everywhere. Jenna and Mason wrestling over the locket in the middle of the bank. My name tagged in every comment. People I hadn't spoken to in years were sharing it, laughing at Mason's meltdown, cringing at Jenna's shrieking. Suddenly, I wasn't the town joke. I was the guy who'd survived public humiliation and still stood tall. Neighbors stopped me on the street with awkward grins. "Heard you really showed them, Tyler." Even Dad, who'd ignored me for weeks, left a voicemail. "Proud of you, son. You kept your head." That afternoon, I returned to the bank this time, my hands steady, the locket tucked in my pocket. Mr. Ellis greeted me in his glass-walled office. He slid a heavy envelope across the desk. "Your mother left a notarized letter. She wanted you to read this before the final transfer." I broke the seal and unfolded the letter. My mother's neat looping script covered the page. "Tyler, if you're reading this, it means you passed every test I set. I'm sorry for the pain, but I needed to know you would hold on to your values no matter what the world threw at you. Money can't buy character. That's why I trusted you alone. I love you, Mom." Tears stung my eyes, but I didn't hide them. Mr. Ellis stood and reached for a folder. One last signature. The room went silent as I signed. A moment later, the bank app on my phone flashed, available balance, $55,000. Euro. My knees shook. The old Tyler Brokanke, humiliated, was gone. But as I stared at that number, I realized the most important thing Mom gave me wasn't money. It was proof that I was worthy of her trust. And for the first time in years, I actually believed it. But I knew this wasn't the end. Now, with everyone watching, it was up to me to decide what kind of man I'd be, with or without the fortune. Tyler decides to set up a scholarship for struggling students, using part of his inheritance. After the dust settled, I realized I could finally breathe again. Sitting at my mom's old kitchen table, now mine, I scrolled through the headlines, feeling more relief than triumph. But one thought wouldn't leave me alone. How many kids like me just scraping by had been told they'd never be enough? I called Mr. Ellis at the bank and set up the Ramsey Scholarship, $250,000 a year for local high schoolers who'd lost a parent or been through tough times. I didn't want a building named after me. I wanted second chances, the kind I wished someone had given me. By the end of the week, people started to treat me differently. Old enemies, guys who'd mocked me in the supermarket or ignored me at the BBQ, sent messages. "Hey man, sorry about before." Mason and Jenna disappeared from the neighborhood, their names barely whispered anymore. Dad, out of nowhere, left a note in my mailbox. Just a few lines, shaky handwriting. "I made mistakes, Ty. Can we talk?" I wasn't sure what to say back yet. Some wounds take more than money to heal. But the real shift came when a young journalist named Nina Torres showed up at my door. She'd heard the gossip, seen the videos, but she wanted to know the truth. We sat on the porch, late sun painting the yard gold as I told her everything, about Mom's puzzles, the tests, the locket, the pain and humiliation, and finally the choice I'd made with the money. 2 days later, her article exploded online. Teacher's Fortune, The True Cost of Loyalty. She wrote about my mom's life as a teacher, the lessons she left behind, and how one son's loyalty meant more than any fortune. Suddenly, my story was trending. Our Ramsey Scholarship filled social feeds. Strangers emailed to say my choices inspired them. I got messages from students, single parents, even teachers in other states. They wanted to know how I'd held on, why I didn't just give up. For the first time in my life, it felt like being myself mattered. Not the money, not the scandal, not even the humiliation, just the honesty of living by my mom's example. As the sun set that evening, I realized this was my real legacy. The locket, the millions, those were just keys to something bigger. But as the notifications rolled in, one message, anonymous, no subject, popped up on my phone, and my heart raced all over again. Thanksgiving dinner, Tyler, Aunt Evelyn, and new friends around the table. Not a luxury car in sight. This Thanksgiving, the dining table felt different. There was no centerpiece of caviar or crystal, just Aunt Evelyn's famous green bean casserole, mashed potatoes, and my attempt at Mom's lemon pie. Around me sat people who'd chosen to be family, not out of obligation, but loyalty and kindness. Aunt Evelyn cracked jokes, making everyone laugh, while Nina Torres, the journalist, passed the bread to her intern who'd tagged along. No Teslas in the driveway. No jewelry on the table. Just warmth and the glow of candles flickering against the window. As we ate, stories flowed, some sad, most funny, all honest. I looked around at faces once distant, now close. Even Dad, quieter than ever, finally showed up and slipped a homemade card under my plate. Proud of the man you became. For the first time in my life, his approval didn't sting or define me. I realized then what I'd chased for so long, validation, applause, being enough, had never been about money or status. My phone buzzed with texts I ignored. Outside, the sky was deep blue. Not a paparazzi or social climber in sight. I thought about Mom's riddles, the clues she left, and how each one forced me to look deeper, not just at puzzles or bank accounts, but at myself. Across the table, Aunt Evelyn caught my eye and nodded as if to say, "You did it, Ty." I felt a wave of gratitude. For her, for Mom, for every setback that made this moment real. The Ramsey Scholarship was already changing lives. Emails from kids who'd been where I was, broke, overlooked, but stubborn enough to hope, poured in. Their stories filled me with pride and a new sense of purpose. That night, as plates emptied and laughter lingered, I saw the truth as clear as the pie on my plate. Family wasn't just who you're born to, but who stands beside you when everything else falls apart. As the meal wound down, I stood to make a toast, my voice steady, my heart full. For years, I thought inheritance meant money or a last name. But tonight, I know the truth. The real inheritance is worth, not wealth. It's the courage to start over and the guts to stay kind in a world that measures value in dollar signs. Heads nodded. Glasses clinked. If you've ever been written off or laughed at, remember, your story isn't over. Like, subscribe, and join me for the next one. My name is Tyler Briggs, and this Thanksgiving, for the first time, I was rich in all the ways that mattered.